We know that you are joining from different time zones, so whatever applies to your location, we welcome you. I'm Surbi Singhal. I welcome you on behalf of the International Council for Circular Economy, ICCE, in collaboration with Dakshin, the Global South Center of Excellence at Research and Information System for Developing Countries, RIS, for this important webinar on enabling circular economy for a sustainable global South. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us today. It's good to see such an enthusiastic turnout with participants and expert speakers joining us from across the regions, each of you playing a critical role in shaping the circular economy movement in Global South. I request you all to keep yourself on mute so as to avoid any disturbances during the workshop. You can definitely keep your cameras on. We would like to see you. Please use the chat to ask questions, and our moderators will definitely try to communicate as much as possible through the chat, and they'll take up your questions also. And for your reference, we are sharing the agenda in the chat box. Princey, my colleague, she'll be sharing the agenda for your reference in the chat box. Please, you can all have a look at it. As we gather today, we are reminded of the urgent need to reimagine our economic systems. The Global South, while rich in natural and human resources, continues to face challenges of rapid urbanization, environmental degradation, and resource exploitation. But it is also a region where innovation thrives, where indigenous practices offer inspiration, and where circularity can become not just a model of sustainability, but a pathway to equitable growth and resilience. Our discussions today will revolve around how we can unlock that potential by creating inclusive policies, promoting circular practices, integrating the informal sector, and aligning the circular economy with our unique cultural and socio-economic realities. To set the tone for this meaningful conversation, I'm honored to first invite a visionary leader and a strong voice in the space of international cooperation and sustainable development, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Director General of RIS, to deliver the inaugural address. Professor Chaturvedi's leadership has been pivotal in shaping South-South collaborations, and his thoughts will undoubtedly guide us as we explore new frontiers of sustainability. So, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Surabhi, for planning and helping us get this over. I'm extremely delighted that Dr. Shalini Bhalla has joined us today. She would be giving the keynote address and would take this forward. We are also very delighted that this partnership with the International Council for Circular Economy is extremely timely, particularly when the global concerns on derailment of SDGs has multiplied manifolds all across. And we are all seeing with great commitment and hope that we would be able to save SDG movement across the world. The Global South, among the kind of contestations that we are seeing at multiple levels in the realm of trade, in the realm of technology, and also access to development finance, and also investment. So how weaponization of these dimensions is multiplying across, we need to see how Global South can keep the action together. How we are looking at the issues in which development interest of our citizens is of great significance. And that requires us to make efforts. And I'm extremely happy and would like to congratulate my colleague, Professor Gulshan Sachdeva, for giving this new leadership, a very dynamic leadership at Dakshin, the Global South Center of Excellence. As some of you are aware, Dakshin was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister at RIS to see how the voice of Global South is shared. It's a manifestation of India's commitment for sharing our development experience with all of our partners in the Global South. So Dakshin is intended to bring in research, partnerships, and also the technical expertise, which is there in the realm of agriculture, health, and also the digital solutions. Circular economy is a cross-cutting collective commitment towards this. Circular economy has given us new hope for advancing the right to repair, idea to recycle, and also reuse. Several of these R's are playing multiple dimensions of circular economy, meaningful public connect at various levels. The economic size of circular economy is also expanding at a pace that we haven't seen before. The idea of taking it forward is something which is extremely inspiring. What is standing at around $500 billion in 2023 is now being expected at $2 trillion by 2031. And this number is likely to give major impetus in terms of how Global South's Connect is going to multiply. We are also extremely delighted to see how use of new technologies, how new applications are also going to go forward in terms of creating new dimensions of engagement for Global South, particularly when right to
I think first, Sachin, you have to unmute you.
in terms of, thank you. In terms of how we bring in these new dimensions in terms of how we are going to get further traction across the societies. The ability of monopoly rights over specific technological advancement have foreclosed options for latecomers in the technology race. This has also created a major impediment for people to take the task forward. I'm extremely happy that we have partnered with the ICCE and we are going to take this task forward with Dr. Shalini Bhalla, who would be giving the keynote presentation today and would also give us an idea as to how the Global South may go forward. And after her address, of course, there is designed to have a panel discussion and then the thematic presentations that are lined up. I congratulate all of our partner institutions and subject experts who have taken time off to join us and discuss with us these multiple dimensions of circular economy. So thanks and congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your inspiring and thought-provoking insights, definitely. And now I will invite Ms. Shalini Goyal Bhalla, the Managing Director of ICCE and a leading advocate of circularity in India and beyond. Her work at ICCE has been instrumental in building circular economy awareness and action across sectors. Ms. Bhalla will be sharing her perspectives on the Global South's role in the circular transition and ICCE's vision for the future. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Ms. Shalini.
Thank you, Surbhi. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Chaturvedi, for the words of wisdom. I think it is very important to set the tone of the important task that we have started today. Distinguished guests, the colleagues, esteemed colleagues and partners in sustainability. It is an honor to stand here today at this important gathering that symbolizes not only the strength of South-South cooperation that we talk, but also a collective resolve to build a sustainable and inclusive future for us. I speak here not today as only the representative of the International Council for Circular Economy, but as a proud citizen of India, which is an emerging global leader, which is committed to the environment stewardship, regional partnerships, and economic transformation. India has its own demographic dividend, the entrepreneurial spirit, the ancient traditions of sustainable living, and this makes India uniquely positioned to champion the circular economy. If I talk about our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, he has articulated a very bold vision of India's growth, which is not only just an economic expansion, but also building a human-centric, inclusive model of development. His neighborhood first policy and the vision of Global South emphasizes solidarity, resilience, and shared prosperity. these values are deeply aligned with the principles of circular economy. The vision of India was very extensively reflected in the G20 presidency and also at COP26, where lifestyle for environment was introduced as a global movement. The idea is simple yet profound. Small lifestyle changes can collectively create a massive impact. And I remember our Honorable Prime Minister saying the world must shift from mindless consumption to mindful utilization. And that is the ethos of circularity, isn't it? And then as we move from this interaction towards the action, we see a lot of work being happening in India. If I talk numbers, India generates around 62 million tons of waste annually, of which only 20% is processed. But we don't see this as a challenge. This is an opportunity. And we are deploying decentral waste management systems, integrating our existing informal sector, developing frameworks that enable circular business models in several sectors, including textiles, construction, mobility, and electronics. If I talk about ICCE, we are very proud to be collaborating with Dakshin today, the Global South Center of Excellence. The idea is to bring together the grassroots innovation and global expertise. Our mission is not only to accelerate this circular transition in India, but support the entire Global South through knowledge sharing, capacity building, and inclusive policy advocacy. If I talk about the emerging economies, the people, if you look at the percentages and numbers, we comprise of 78 countries with almost 75% of the world population. But we only contribute 39% to the global GDP. We harbor most of the planet's biodiversity. And if we talk about manufacturing numbers, almost half of the global manufacturing exports, they originate from Global South. And the consumption, if we talk about the consumption numbers, it's rapidly increasing and will account to 47% of the global consumption by this year, by the end of this year. Again, if I recall some numbers from international studies, the International Energy Agency in 2019 had put a figure of 55% to the global north consumption of energy, of the global energy, while the global south, which is huge population, 75% consumes only 45%. If you look at the Food and Agriculture Organization, the per capita water withdrawal in North America itself was 2,900 cubic meters in 2017, while Africa was 674 cubic meters. According to the World Resource Institute, the global North and South accounts for 75 and 25% of the global beef consumption, respectively. Another number suggested by the World Resource Institute, which is very intriguing, is that the global North consumes 87% of the world's paper and 68% of world wood. So this shows that our economies, the emerging economies, we face similar challenges: resource scarcity, rapid urbanization, climate vulnerability. But then we also share some common strengths, which are community-driven solutions, which are rooted with the indigenous knowledge we all have. The circular economy is not just a Western export. It is embedded in the lifestyle of millions who sit across Asia, Africa, Latin America. And so one of the work at ICCE is to enable a transition that creates a modular, scalable training programs for our youth and industry professionals. We partner with local governments to design zero waste models. We support the women and self-help groups in developing countries to develop circular enterprises. We have facilitated dialogues through platforms like this because the transformation demands collaboration, as we all understand today. And the most important is use technology as a lever of advancement. If I were to recall the words of our Honorable Prime Minister at the Voice of Global South Summit, he had said that the the global south, have the largest stake in the future. 3/4 of the humanity lives in our countries. We should have an equivalent voice. That voice is now resonating through leadership like yours, policy innovation that we all are working towards, and the grassroots action we all bring on. Together, we need to reimagine the development, not as a linear race, but as a circular path that uplifts all of us together. We need to build resilient, regenerative economy that not only grows, but heal, that not only includes, but empower us together. We must co-create solutions that help us, not only us, but the entire world. And with that, I believe I am very positive of the discussions today, taking a route where we all could work together to make Global South more circular and developing in a sustainable model. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shalini. It's definitely a call to action. Your words have been inspiring. Thanks a lot for your words and insights. And now as we step into our first panel discussion, I'm excited to introduce the experts from the Global South who have joined us from different geographies. I welcome heartily Mr. Wekesa Zablon. He is the circular economy expert, Africa Circular Economy Network, ASEN, Kenya. We have Mr. Wale Ariwa. He's the founder and CEO, Experience South Africa. Ms. Nilu Putu Yuniari, CEO, Alutra Impact and Siva Impact, Indonesia. And we have Mr. Pravashan Naidu, founder and MD of eWaste Africa from South Africa again. And now I welcome Mr. Piotr Bartek, who brings a wealth of knowledge and global experience and will be steering our panel discussion. Piotr is Circular Economy Program Manager at Africa Circular Economy Network Foundation, ASEN Foundation. Piotr, over to you, please. We have 35 minutes for this discussion, and I will request everyone to keep themselves on mute, and you can put your questions in the chat box. Piotr.
Thank you very much, Rabhi. Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, everyone who organized this event, for inviting me also and to moderate. Indeed, I represent the ASEN Foundation, and also I'm the advisor at the International Council for Circular Economy. So thank you for inviting and the collaboration. So the session will be short, but we want to have good insights from our colleagues, the invitees, Wekesa, Wale, Nilu Patu, and Pravashan. Yes, and please also ask, all participants can ask questions. We will see how we can tackle them, but indeed half an hour will be fast. So I won't speak too much because what Shalini said is really great with the mobilization and also the numbers, where are we heading and what are the challenges. But let's also hear from colleagues indeed from different parts of the world. We have colleagues now who will join from Africa and also from Indonesia, different parts of Africa. Yeah? So what I can do, I suggest that each of the panelists will just say 1 minute introduction. I will call you, and then I have few guiding questions to guide the discussion, but I would like to keep it like open flow according to the questions in the chat and also your own reflections. So let's start with Wekesa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. I'm Zablon Wekesa. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. Piotr is my colleague. I'm with the Africa Circular Economy Network and also Foundation. And at the core, I'm a product designer. I run a small design boutique. It's called Circular Design Nairobi, where we help organizations figure out or deepen their roots within the circular economy, and also just work within the region. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Wekesa. Indeed, great to see you here. And next, Mr. Wale Ariwa from Experience.
Good afternoon, Peter. Good afternoon, Subahi. I'm Wale Ariwa. I'm the CEO of Experience. We've been running in South Africa for the last 26 years. We basically specialize in corporate computers. I'm not sure what's happening there. I lost my feed.
That's fine. I just
Can you hear
ask
me?
everyone to, yes, we can hear you. I ask everyone except the speakers, panelists, to mute, okay? And Surabhi will also manage those microphones. Thank you.
Okay,
Wale.
I'm CEO of Experian. We specialize in ITAD, and we've been running in South Africa for the last 26 years. I'm looking forward to this conversation. And I'll tell you about some of the challenges we're experiencing in the global South, and why we're forced to do business with the West when we are in proximity to, at least in Africa here, we're proximity to 55 countries.
Indeed, thank you. Let's talk about those challenges too of trade. And then, yes, please, Nilu Patu Yunyari from Indonesia.
Yes,
Aludra
thank you,
Impact.
Peter.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to be here and to discuss these very interesting topics and a very crucial topic for all of us. So you can call me Yuni, actually, and I'm the CEO of I was muted by the host.
Now it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm the CEO of both Aludra Impact and Siwa Impact. So we are based in Jakarta and Bali of Indonesia. And at the moment, we have been developing a mechanism financing some initiatives through a carbon credit mechanism in Indonesia. So yeah, we have the ups and downs. We have a lot of challenges, especially in the regulations and the mutual recognition between countries. So yeah, it is challenging, and we are happy to share everything that we've learned so far. So thank you. I think you're muted.
Sorry. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yuni. So your region is not very well known to me, so very happy to learn along with participants. And indeed, the regulation and financing, we shall also touch upon that. And last but not least, Pravashen, can you introduce yourself from eWaste Africa, South Africa?
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. Hi, everyone. My name is Pravashen Naidu, and I'm both the founder and managing director of eWaste Africa. Looking forward to the session and the engagement. Just from a South African perspective, we actually focus on the recycling of electronic waste, very much focused on things like your more hazardous waste streams being lighting, solar, batteries. And I'm here to talk about why we don't necessarily have to go to the West. And we do have quite good commercial and technical skills in the global South that we are not necessarily maximizing. And just to share a bit around gender equity and social inclusion strategically for the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pravashen. Thank you to all. Okay, let me kick the discussion, a bit reflecting what all of you already said. There is knowledge, there is activities happening in the Global South with regards to circular economy. We just maybe don't call it as such, but yes, indeed, to a certain extent, it is happening. But why is it, why we still see so much untreated waste around? Why we see increasing waste amounts of different streams, all of the streams? Maybe you, I will call all of you for a short intervention here, relevant to your specific stream, so e-waste or organic waste or so on. Okay, so let's start with Yuni.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think the circular economy concept actually has been like, it is very common, but not too many people have like know the definitions, even though they are doing it. But still, it's in the informal sectors, and the regulation actually, we are still, I mean, in Indonesia, we are still working on the regulation related to circular economy, because when it comes to waste, there are certain requirements that we have to follow. For example, we have been developing a an initiative in which all of the waste generator, when they have a refrigerant waste from the HVAC, we are enabling them to be able to recover the refrigerant from the unit. So let's say one companies would like to replace their refrigerant inside their chillers or their ACs. And at the moment, it's just being thrown away to the air. And we're enabling the partners that partnering up with us. And then we provide all of the machine, all of the equipments, and enabling them to recover. And then we usually do the retrofit. So we exchange into the refrigerant that is more environmental friendly. And then the refrigerant waste itself, we send it to reclaim. So it's a recycle so that it can be put back to the industry again. But our issue at the moment, our challenge at the moment is that when we recover the refrigerant waste, it's only the reclaim percentage. It can be only like 20 to 30%. And because of the refrigerant is under the hazardous waste, it's also giving us like more challenge on the regulation side. So yeah, for our cases right now, we are advocating with to the government and with the government agency as well to soften the regulations and to also socialize with all of the stakeholders from the private sectors, from the government sectors, and from the public itself, that it is possible to do circular economy, and we are enabling the initiative, the business models that not only that will allow them to recover without having to burden their financial situation. So that's what they're working right now.
Thank you, Uni. Interesting point. So hazardous waste indeed is very much regulated, and probably rightly so because it's hazardous, but how the regulation can also facilitate new companies and more companies to access this waste and to treat it in a correct way with giving good tools and procedures. Indeed. Okay, thank you. But so that is about hazardous waste. Let me go to Wekesa from Kenya, and you deal with different streams. I know you can explain any stream you want, maybe plastic or organic waste, but so how is it happening? Why we still have a lot of these streams and actually not treated and increasing, while low-tech technologies are available in the global south and in the global north?
Well, thanks, Piotr. Well, there are a couple of challenges that we face within our context. So, first of all, we have a huge knowledge gap in terms of how to recover value from these resources that we have. Because some of the technology that we import is quite advanced, and most of the components are, not designed for, I'd say, recyclability or without that concept of recovering the resources in mind. So, for instance, for e-waste, we really don't know how to navigate that in terms of technology. But for plastics, there's a lot of interventions that are happening already. We've seen a lot of uses for the for plastics in context. It's just now how to streamline that in terms of material recovery infrastructure. So we need to come up with more clear supply chains or value chains that are more well endowed in terms of recapturing that material that often leaks into the environment. So we have seen a lot of good policies that have come out already in terms of working with stakeholders. Now what we need to see is investment in that. Why I say investment in that is because at some point the cost of getting in new stuff becomes way lower than the cost of recovering value from the stuff that or the reserve that we already own or we already have. Yeah, so that is an area that needs to be worked on in terms of tax incentives. But the two issues of the knowledge gap and the infrastructure gap are core in terms of the materials that we have, and these cut across all the value chains. Now, we have to know also that in a hungry town, no food goes to waste. So we are hungry to reuse these materials, but we lack the knowledge and technology to, capture the value. I'll give you an example: textile waste. A lot of textile waste, once it leaves the waste management system and becomes litter, there's very little tech in terms of what you can use for that. Even some of the waste, when it's in landfill, it causes a huge problem. The bulk of waste in land is either textile waste at some point or organic waste. But with organic waste, it's an issue of contamination because we're seeing raising use cases of use. But textile waste, we have a huge gap still. So we could use technology and we could use that knowledge in terms of recovery of value, or putting value to it.
Thank you, Wekesa. And you mentioned an important point, meaning product design. So whatever comes to the market in the global south, or what is produced in the global, it is not it is not designed for a long, for a closed loop, for circularity, for repair, and not really for recycling. So, and even if it's designed for recycling, the infrastructure might not be there. Wekesa said about lack of knowledge.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. And maybe just to answer your very first question you asked, that why is it not working, or what is the issues? I mean, just from a US Africa perspective and from a South African perspective, there are inherent costs, and it's costs of distributing sort of a collection network. There's costs of transporting. There's costs of doing it from a legally licensed perspective and ensuring that all the byproducts are solved. And inherently, in electronic waste, there are either cost negative electronic goods or cost positive electronic goods. On the cost negative side, things like light bulbs, solar panels, batteries, there's not enough money in the byproducts to justify the commercial activity. So you really need legislation to drive that sort of growth within the industry. In South Africa specifically, all electronic waste has been down to landfill. That's definitely helped drive sort of the corporate market around it. And we recently gazetted EPR, which I don't think exists yet in any of the other African countries, stand to be corrected, but that's also sort of driving an investment now in technology and being able to try and find how do we get the mass volumes and then be able to justify the CapEx requirements. And that's, because I think possibly not necessarily a lack of knowledge, but a lack of access to these technologies. Something we specifically doing is a lot of in-house R&D, which we spend quite a bit of it. I'll give you the example. In South Africa, glass is not a well-recycled product. It's only the food grade or the food grade glass products that are well recycled. There's no real solutions for other glass products. So we've had to come up with our own sort of solution. So our lighting waste, once depolluted, it's important to depollute things like mercury. We're actually able to reuse the byproducts into making pavers or into concrete blocks towards sort of housing developments. So it's about finding what suits the market. I mean, we can on-sell those products. We still refer to it as downcycling. We generally believe that refurbishment and reuse is really the only ways to really impact climate impact, literally. So if you want to get a multiplier effect in sustainability, you've got to go for the reuse and refurbishment side. We've got a long way to go, and knowledge sharing that needs to happen. But a forum like this is where we get to meet Wally, meet Wekesa, and we'd love to have a chat around what the synergies would be. We struggle with plastics in South Africa, so I think there's some nice synergies that could already happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues who are joining also online, please write if EPR exists in your countries in the Global South. Just write in the chat. I'm pretty sure there are a few African countries where the legislation is there, but enforcement is another issue, implementation. Okay, no, thank you also for emphasizing, Pravashan, about reuse and refurbishment before recycling. Yeah, because this is keeping the value of materials much longer in the lifetime of the products, indeed, and directly actually contributing to reduction of waste generation, which is, as we know, always say, right? The best waste to treat is that one that is not generated. Once it's generated, it's already end of pipe solution that is needed. So yes, to Wale, what do you think about what was said so far? And also about the upstream solutions, if you want to react on that. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Okay, my focus area is actually computers. And the great thing about computers is that there's a lot of value there. We take our computers from the corporates and we send it to resellers. But our frustration is that most of the computers initially are manufactured in the north, in China, and then when we supplement the corporate computer supply chain, we supplement it with imports from America. 90% of my customers are actually in South Africa, but I would love to have access to Sub-Saharan Africa and beyond, to the other areas of the global south to actually trade computers. But I find that the problems we have are, there are small economies, there are complex trade barriers, there's poor logistics, there's poor infrastructure, the currency is generally not the same, and then we have the language barrier. And especially in Africa, we have so many different languages, and then we have the Anglophone and the French-speaking countries seem to be almost on a different continent. But anyway, just let me tell you a little bit about the fragmented markets. We find that we have people coming from all over Southern Africa. They come to South Africa, and that's because they come and they want to take these things manually because they have lots of challenges with importing equipment into their country. And the frustration I have here is we read a lot about the African Free Trade Agreement, but that African Free Trade Agreement is only really suited to large companies because they have, you need to have 40% RVC. It has to be beneficiated in that country by 40% before you can take advantage of not levying taxes at the border. Another problem really is the poor logistics. We don't have interconnecting flights between most of the African countries, and the roads, the network is not great. Even when we do have good transportation, the bureaucracy at the customs borders is so much. I do have customers in neighboring countries, and we have to go through exchange control mechanisms, customs mechanisms, and it can take me to import from a neighboring country up to 6 weeks just to get my paperwork in a row. And the language barrier is a massive problem as well. But if we can get past all these challenges, I think there is an opportunity there for us to take on the likes of the Western companies, which are actually situated in Dubai. And they seem to have at least good interconnectivity from Dubai. You've got good transportation to a lot of the countries in Southern Africa. And obviously, everybody's speaking English there and they're trading in the dollar. I think because if we can get past these challenges, the opportunity, I think, is immense because I haven't been able to find specific stats on what the trade is in Africa, but I'm very sure that it's approaching $500 million. And I think we need a lot of help from the authorities to allow smaller companies to access this free trade agreement that we have, and the like. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you for those important insights on trade barriers. Indeed, I personally think trade and regulations are there to protect, but maybe they are not effective enough. You know, maybe many things could be done more digitally, right, rather than just paperwork, which is probably very slow. You know, but it's also frustrating to hear that yes, doing circular economy across the border is more difficult than bringing toxins into the country, importing toxins. You know, sometimes like when I think about pesticides. But yeah, no, that's a great point. E-waste, as you said, it's actually you need a scale to recycle, so you need quantities as opposed to repair that you do locally, and you don't need those quantities indeed. But when it comes, this discussion also is relevant for plastics for many, but I also believe that there is quite a lot of plastics in every country. So there is no need to facilitate trade of plastic waste in order to reach scales, because every country has enough quantities of plastic. Okay. I wanted to talk about bioeconomy, but I see that maybe apart from Wekesa, would you like to speak more about bioeconomy? Just to maybe insert some ideas on how bioeconomy is part of circular economy, and in the global south it can play a special role because of the important food systems, and Kenya is quite strong on that as well. Okay.
Oh yeah. So in terms of the bioeconomy, we've seen a lot of opportunity, especially on rethinking materials and looking at nature for solutions. So we've seen a very strong representation of research facilities like TCPEC that have cutting edge tech, and they're looking at putting it within the market system. So like biopest, for instance, biopesticides, for instance, control of pests within landscapes, and also just rethinking new materials and alternatives for materials when it comes to not, I'd say, where necessary, stop replacing plastic. We know that plastic is an extremely useful material, yes, but there are certain use cases that we can use alternative materials and that we can borrow from nature. So we're seeing a lot of, especially when it comes to things like, you know, seaweed farming. So for seaweed farming, you require ropes that are put under the sea to hold the sea farms and give structure to sea farms so that they are not swept away by waves. So conventionally, those ropes are plastic, but we're seeing alternatives to substitute that. Even for our context, in terms of being waste bin liners, there has been a proposal put out to replace that with biodegradable materials instead of using plastic. So we are looking at
can I nudge you to one point? You know, we visited together one black soldier farm facility, and Kenya is leading. Well, South Africa also has very good facilities there. Can you tell us something about that, and how circular is that, and why it could be interesting? You know, black soldier fly is for tropical zones across, and so sub-Saharan Africa, but also a lot of Indonesia, a lot of part of Indonesia, and actually Asia, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. So yeah, about black soldier fly, please.
Yeah. So why the biodegradable bags are useful? It's because when you look at waste collection systems within our context and applying like BSF facility, BSF technology, we need to operate at source, and that is reliant on our collection systems. So we have been able to employ, we have a number of use cases that are employing black soldier fly technology at scale. You know, and we're looking at a number of products there. And most of these products are being put within a market system. So we're not looking at them being subsidized, but we're creating a sustainable circular economy, I'd say. So you look at studies like Chanzi, you look at case studies like Synergy, then you look at other case studies that are operating on a much more smaller scale. And in terms of products, we're seeing, like biopesticides, we're also seeing animal feed formulation. And with that, it also comes a huge opportunity for managing organic waste. When you look at the conversion rates of these insects per se, the conversion rate is almost 70%, and it diverts a lot of waste that will have gone into the landfill. So even for Kenya, in terms of regulation, there's a very strong regulation to do away with landfills and only have like waste that cannot be handled with other technologies go to the landfill. So with good policy, investment, and access to technology, there's a very strong market. And also and I also say workers, because we have a just transition and we have a lot of waste workers that will be working within this economy. Yeah.
Thanks,
I'd
Wekesa.
say-
Just to make it clarify to everyone, the products of black soldier fly are the proteins that go for feed, the fertilizer, well, the soil improver that is called FRAS, and also chitin, chitosan, or biostimulants. So I say that because you said it's economically viable, solution for organic waste, which is a majority of waste in the global south. Well, in many countries, actually, in all of the countries, but specifically like over even 70% very often in African countries and some Asian countries as well. So let's go back to the topics of electronics. There was a question, actually. There were a few questions about transport. I will not go to the questions how to improve, routes and transport across Africa or Asia, but there was one question. Actually, it was maybe a reaction to Pravashin. Okay, yes, by Mekonnen. What type of regulation is recommended for e-waste circular economy nexus for the global south, Pravashin? What would you recommend for e-waste circular economy nexus for global south?
Yeah, so it's very much, and just to reflect back on the legislation, you're very much right, Peter, that policing it is the hardest part. And I think we really struggle with that in South Africa in terms of we got great regulation, but the first bit of regulation is always to ban the waste to landfill. I mean, you've got compliance around that. EPR is a great way to actually start sort of creating value for the non-valuable items and allowing for that investment. I think one of the topics we haven't really spoken about is how do you start converting the sort of sustainable climate impacts, the carbon credits around it, and the value around that. So it's not actually a value from the product itself for the metals that may be in it, because the sort of the full value might not be positive, but you can create legislation around carbon credits. You can create legislation around EPR. What we are needing is maybe guidance, and I mean, I would push this back to the entire grouping, is that how do we help with the enforcement? We just don't have the resources from a governmental perspective, and if we can fix that and create some sort of way to manage the enforcement, that will really start driving the volumes. I mean, we only do about 7% sort of e-waste in South Africa, even though it's banned to landfill, even though there's EPR, we at best 7-8%. Electronic waste specifically is the fastest growing waste stream in the world. And a lot of people, I mean, e-waste is growing probably at 5 or 6% generally, but there are factors within e-waste, for example, solar panels and sort of EV batteries or solid state batteries. Those are increasing into the market by 30-40% of the volumes from a year on year that is coming in as waste. Easier to manage the bigger products. I think you can really hide stuff in your normal municipal bins. and maybe some legislation of supporting again, a South African perspective, how do we support the municipalities to be able to separate at source? If we can separate at source, it fixes the logistics. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Professor. Yes, so your good question I pose to everyone, please, in the panelists or also in the chat, how to enforce the regulation, because setting up the regulation is one thing, is already difficult and important, but then enforcement at each level, national, but also city level. I think, the weight of reaching targets and reaching the results is on the shoulders of municipalities. So a good point here also. So I invite everyone to think about this, but quick question to Ioni. I wanted to get a few thoughts about indigenous knowledge. As I said, I don't know much about Indonesia, so it would be nice to hear about that. Indigenous knowledge in circular economy.
Yeah. So, well, Indonesia has a lot of communities. So we have 17,000 plus islands. So a lot of different local wisdoms, and I would take several examples from my island, which is Bali. In one of the part in mid regions of Indonesia. So we have since our ancestors, we have started to use packaging that is environmentally friendly, and along the way, we have been advised to use plastic instead of environmental friendly packaging. And now the local wisdoms, most of the younger generations now is advocating to implement the local wisdoms that have been forgotten before. And we also have some communities in Indonesia that are very heavy in refurbishing and also recycling the materials, especially from the metals. So this one community is, we have I would say, stereotype that this community is the master of the refurbishing and the master of recycling of all of the metals materials in Indonesia. And that is one informal circular economy initiative from the local wisdom, actually. And I think a lot of other initiatives that can be implemented through informal sectors, and also it has been integrated within our community. I think that's initiatives that we have to enforce, so that the people also feel like it's not only enforced by the government, but it is the way of life that have been going on since their ancestors. So yeah.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Indeed, I always contemplate this question: how come that indigenous ideas that are low tech have been there so long? They were in good relation with nature. Yeah. Yep. It's only now when we are going into so much high tech, we are actually contradicting all that nature does. Of course, there are also other reasons. There is much more population and much more also technology and so on. But thanks for that. And I don't know how much time we more have, but I want to come back to Wale about informal. Repairing computers. This is what you are mainly doing, no? And e-waste. To what extent, informal or non-registered or non-accredited shops and people basically can deal with that? Whether I know that many communities are. I mean, as you said also, when there is a need, there is always a solution, and people are very creative, and they can repair a lot of stuff that I cannot even imagine. But there are also barriers for them to repair. So yeah, if you can talk about this informal capacity and capabilities versus where they cannot go further.
I think what we're saying there is that there's a huge demand for refurbished computers throughout Africa. I think that's mainly due to the affordability of these small economies. But one big challenge we have for the continued growth of the industry is let me say, the rogue operators or those who are not accredited. I mean, a few of the when you get to the retail level, there are very few companies that have any type of accreditation to resell refurbished computers. And even when it comes to licensing, a lot of people do not license these products. And that actually prevents the continued growth of the market and basically the poor after sales service. So I think what we need to do is get together organizations where people can apply for accreditation on the retail front. But when it comes to the other side of the supply chain, on the ITAD side, we're going to where companies go to corporates to get their computers to refurbish and to supply. There are accreditations one can get, which and that's SIRI Sustainable Recycling International R2 version 3. There's RIOS, there's ADISA, and there's eStewards. But as I said, when you look at the retail arm, there is absolutely no organizations which is promoting the growth of the circular economy. And I think there's a gap in the market there. I think that will help this circular economy grow hugely, Peter.
Thank you so much, Wale, and thank you to everyone. I got signals that we have to finish this part of the session. I cannot summarize what was said, but certainly regulation and enforcement, indigenous knowledge, trade barriers, accreditation, and training, of the stakeholders. There was black soldier fly mentioned and I believe, because I also work in this field, this is something that the Global South, and this is the session about Global South, can show the world how to do this stuff. And in general, low-tech solutions have to revive, and kind of come back to a first solution rather than only an infrastructure. Certainly infrastructure is needed, but before that, there is also prevention, reduction, and reuse that does not need infrastructure. You just need mindset change, enabling environment, and taxation. That was also mentioned. And yes, we certainly should not be very pessimistic. I think as we hear, there are lots of great solutions among participants, a lot of good comments from participants. Thank you. And among panelists. So thank you for that. Let's just continue the good work. Congratulations to everyone. And thank you so much again. Over to you, Surabhi and Shalini.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Piotr, for moderating this wonderful discussion. I think we had a lot of insights from all over the places. We definitely got to know about the challenges being faced in South Africa in the electronics market. And we talked about indigenous solutions that Indonesia has in refurbishing market. Definitely, it was all good. And you very rightly said the mindset has to change. Maybe the technologies which are required are not that high-tech required as of now. We can definitely go back to what we were doing years ago. And it's the shift in our mindsets that is needed. Thanks a lot, everyone, all the speakers and Piotr for this discussion. Now, let's move on to our next discussion in waiting, which will be moderated by Professor Gulshan Sachdeva, the Chief Coordinator at Dakshin Global South Center of Excellence. Professor Sachdeva brings over 30 years of academic and consultancy experience in international settings with a specialization in regional integration, development cooperation, and India's external economic engagements. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Surabhi. And, it has been wonderful discussion. I know, all these speakers within such a short span of time, they were able to introduce many of very complicated concepts. The Piotr was really very good moderated. But, I'm not sure whether I'll be that good because we roughly have about 1 hour or so where we'll have to have this thematic presentation by a couple of our experts and also possible some discussion. And we have to sum up this whole today's workshop what exactly we learned at the end of this, more than 2 hours of discussion. First, maybe I'll just request all this panelists in this particular session, if they can just, if possible, if they can, put on their videos on, because then it will be useful for me to identify, and also for others, because, yes, thank you so much. So we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5, 6, I mean, almost all the speakers are here. And, I don't want to really take much time now, because, we have a solid lineup of speakers here. But, one thing is quite clear, that the concept of circular economy, uh, is roughly the same whether we are talking in the north or in the south. But of course, the contexts are very different, the numbers are very different, the scales are different. And we at the Dakshin, the Global South Center of Excellence, Dakshin basically stands for Development and Knowledge Sharing Initiative. And what we have been doing at Dakshin is we are trying to collaborate with all the think tanks of the Global South, and many of you are our partners. And so far, we have been able to kind of formally establish collaborations with about 140 think tanks of about 86 countries in the Global South. And most of these countries, in fact, all of them did participate in the Voice of Global South summits during the India's G20 presidency. And this whole Dakshin Global South Center of Excellence is also the product of this Voice of Global South summits. So we have been working on many other issues, from agriculture to health issues, and also digital solutions. But, when we were discussing with all our partners, we always found that, the issue of climate change, circular economy, and all related issues are, so many of our partners are really so much interested in it. And, I'm also glad that, we have been able to build partnerships in a very, very, limited kind of time. We discussed, I'm really thankful, Ms. Shalini Bhalla, she's here. I mean, just a few weeks back, we had discussions here, Dakshin. And then we formalized our collaboration. And today, we have this first kind of outcome of what is happening. I met, Professor Shannon just a few weeks back in Gandhinagar, and she has a huge network, and we've been able to kind of, she has been so gracious that she has been able to participate here, and then all our other partners as well. So, I mean, there are many things which are which need to be discussed. But as I understand, I also follow, Europe very, very closely. Ms. Bhala was mentioning about what are the 62 million tons of waste in India. Yes, this looks quite huge, but when I was looking at the numbers in Germany, and there are 300, 400 million tons of waste. But of course, the waste is a bit different, because in Germany or in other Western countries, you have more industrial waste. You also have construction and all other kind of thing. But here we are sometimes talking more about the municipal waste, and that's why sometimes we also feel that when we sometimes see filth around us, and we feel that maybe we have more perhaps waste compared to others. But no, in fact, the north is having much bigger problem. But of course, they also have certain, as I think one of the participants earlier were mentioning, they do have technologies now, they do also have resources. Now, if you look at the European Green Deal, and in which the circular economy is a very important part, they have $1 trillion kind of €1 trillion, kind of lined up for the whole kind of different kind of issues. So we do need certain resources. We do need those technologies in the global south. But the another thing also is that sometimes we also in the global south, we feel that we are also doing quite a recycling, because a lot of waste kind of collections, etc., which happen. But as my understanding is that the whole thing starts with the product design. 60, 70, 80%, if the product is designed in a very different manner, that the waste is and everything else is going to be generated. So if you design products very, very differently, and here we have so many experts, those who know all these things, then later on you are able to solve, I mean, at least handle this problem in a much more meaningful manner. And we have been designing something very differently in the past. Now the responsibility, and particularly the responsibility for the global south, because now ultimately the global south economies are becoming big. Aspirations are there. People also would like to have the similar lifestyle, but obviously they can't afford the similar lifestyle what you have in the past for the industrialized countries. So that's why when the Prime Minister announced this, lifestyle for environment, so it's a mission in a sense that everybody has to realize this, because it's not just only starting certain at the policy level, as they were mentioning in the last session. You can have plenty of regulations, and then and of course how to enforce is always complicated. But if there is a realization from that's why the mission is that by 2028 that 1 billion people in India at least would be able to have responsible consumption. And then of course we would also hope that many other countries of the global south also, because the expansion is going to happen in a very, very big scale in all countries in the global south. I don't want to take more time, but may I just request all of our speakers, like the last session, between 30 seconds to 1 minute, if you can introduce yourself, and then I will come back one by one to all of you. May I start with Ms. Neha Vyas from the World Bank?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope my audio line is clear.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm on the highway, so in case there is a disruption, I'll try to come back again as soon as I can. But good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Neha Vyas. I'm Senior Environment Specialist and India Environment Risk Management Coordinator at the World Bank. We are trying to work out a long-term partnership with ICCE, and hopefully we'll see many of you in the future sessions too.
Thank you, Ms. Neha. Mr. Reza Bath. Nice. Yeah.
Hello everyone, good evening. Hope you can hear my voice.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening everyone. My name is Reza Bath. I'm doing advisory now for Indigenous. This is my second time in CE. Thank you. Currently, I've been working with one waste management company in India, particularly only in waste management, and also in its
I think we'll come back because I think I'm losing your voice.
Reza, your voice is not clear. It's not very clear. Yeah, sir, I think you can get back to him.
I will come back anyway to you, Reza. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Professor Shannon. Yes.
Hello, everyone, and it's been wonderful to hear this session so far and really a learning experience. I'm a scientist by training. I'm also the founder and global director of something called the ECHO Network. And the ECHO Network is a global social innovation partnership of about 2,500 individuals across 46 different countries. And our focus is to share knowledge that can drive sustainable development in emerging economies, and particularly in communities in those economies. And one of our big focuses is circular economy, and particularly circular bioeconomy. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Bilyana.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. First of all, let me express my sincere gratitude to be among these amazing people, since I come from Macedonia, which is a very tiny country comparing to the others here. I'm Biljana Matovska, as I said. I am a program manager of the Sustainable Development Portfolio in the Center for Research and Policy Making, which is the leading think tank in Macedonia, but not only in Macedonia, but in the whole Western Balkans, I can say freely. We also have spread our work globally. Therefore, we are here today. Today, I will briefly just present one case study for a successfully piloted circular economy business model in one of the regions in our country, but you will hear more about that during my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Biliana. Dr. Glenn Aguilar, yes, from Costa Rica.
Aguilar Hernandez, don't worry, Gulash, yeah, that's a Latino name. So, well, it's very nice to meet you all. I'm Glenn Aguilar. Currently, I'm having this meeting from Bogota, Colombia, and I'm here on behalf of Academia de Centroamérica, which is a think tank based in Costa Rica. So I will be bringing some perspective from Latin America and how we are experiencing in circularity from here. So very nice to meet you all.
So next name we have Dr. Mariam Blin from Mauritius. Is she here? I didn't see her.
Yes, I'm
Oh,
here.
you're here.
Hello,
Okay,
Professor
okay,
Saktiva. How are you doing?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm also absolutely delighted to be here, and another very small country being represented here by Mauritius. So Macedonia, you're not alone. So I'm the head of the Shortheifer Center, which is a regional think tank hosted in Mauritius that focuses on the Western Indian Ocean region. And we also have a mission of knowledge sharing, but also a mandate of stakeholder engagement in the region. And today, and I'm an economist by training. I am not a circular economy specialist, but we just happened to have run an engagement workshop on the Mauritius waste management circular framework, and we evaluated its potential and obstacle for implementation. I'm going to talk a bit about this this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. You know, there was another name was also added, Professor Alicia Torres from Uruguay, from GEVI, but I didn't see her. Maybe, no, she's not. Okay, thank you. So, all right. So we have now 6 speakers. So we have, well, roughly about, say, not much more than 45 minutes or so altogether. So maybe if all of you can just, you know, spend about 6, 7, 8 minutes, and then we can have some time for the discussion. Maybe start with, you know, Ms. Neha Vyas. And obviously, all of you are talking specific because these are thematic presentation, and she's going to talk about financing circular economy initiatives. Ms. Vyas, please. Over to you.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So I'll be very brief, knowing that we have an esteemed line of speakers right behind me. And financing can be a topic which can be dealt in a lot of details because these are standard questions that we keep getting. Few years back, when we had started talking about the concept of circular economy, the question was, what is it? How do we get started? Which are those low-hanging fruits where we can start making a dent, etc., etc. But I think we have come a long way in these 5 to 7 years, and there are many, many sectors and governments which are already talking about what and can be done to take these principles and take this concept much further. In fact, there are areas and companies and certain sectors where we have made a lot of headway. How this has been done and what is the role of financing is what I'm going to very quickly touch upon in my presentation without getting into too much of details about each sector. For every point that I'm making, there is a backhand paper or a report or a case study or a program that the bank has been involved in, and I'll be happy to share that in case there is interest or questions around that. But let me take a immediate deep dive into the growing imperative around circular economy. I think when we met as a group of nations in COP28, the underscoring about what circular economy can do, what these strategies mean, including for the financial sectors, and how do we get the financial sector to come up to speed and start supporting concepts around that to meet the larger climate goals, environmental goals, sustainability goals, became very clear. What was very interesting and has become often a reference point for countries and the governments to go back is the negotiated outcomes, which are in a written format. And COP28 was for the first time when a significant leap came up beyond talking about sustainable lifestyles, consumption, and talking about environmental and climate-related protection. So the question was no longer whether these issues are important or not. The idea was how we could get to start solving them. And circular economy and these concepts were central to the whole question of sustainability. Unfolding economic opportunities is something that the government and the private sector has realized. In fact, we have not even scratched the surface when it comes to circular economy related stuff. We are talking about a multi-trillion dollar opportunity that is largely untapped. Not only the environmental and social outcomes can be enhanced and we can start moving it, but even those of us who just love pure economics and want to keep the environment and the sustainability story on the backhand, circular economy still does make a sense. I'll not get into the numbers, but some of these figures that I put on this slide, it's basically estimated that almost 350 billion of financing and investment in one way or the other has been dedicated to circular economy just in these last 5 to 6 years. Certain sectors have got more of it. Certain sectors are just about starting. But whether you look at the sovereign bond market or whether you look at the public policy related funds that are getting allocated, or when you look at certain scaling up that has happened in particular sectors, you'll find that numbers are getting bigger by the day. So that means that we have been able to move the needle in the right direction when it comes to circular economy. But are we there in a complete circular system? No, not yet. But the leaps and certain segmental bits that were required to up the game have definitely started. I would also like to emphasize here that for those of us who put sustainability and the question of how we can make sure that this unprecedented economic growth and all of these requirements of the global world, there are certain areas to focus upon. And World Bank research has shown that and of course, there is also private sector involvement in this, that if we concentrate on 5 sectors, which is the cement, the aluminum, the steel, plastics, food, of course, there are others also. But if you start looking at it, half of our emissions, which comes from these goods and production and services and so forth, we can make a big impact from a climate perspective, from a GHG emission control perspective, etc. And this in itself will be equivalent to eliminating like what the transport sector is doing. And that is one of the, again, the larger sectors. And I think the previous discussion was talking about some of those areas. Now, the findings that we have from our analytics, World Bank analytics, there are Bocconi University, there are UN related, and there are many papers that I can get into the details about, but not today, where the circular economy strategies are showing that it is not only a good for social environment and the climate part of the game, but it is lowering investment risk. And I think for the financing sector, for the people who are investing money, who love hard economics and are chasing money, it's a big driver for risk-adjusted returns. And there are hard numbers which prove this game. So for a circular economy, from a company perspective, it is not only lowering the risk of defaulting on debts, but it is also helping in adjusted returns on the stocks. So there's a lot that we can talk about in maybe future sessions, but there is hard economics and de-risking and stabilizing portfolios, which institutions, including the World Bank, are looking at how we could bring in the financing dimensions more prominently so that we can have more uptake on the circular economy concepts. Now, I'll very quickly spend just a few seconds on each of these slides and what it takes to get to. And Bank has been a part of each one of this. One of the first was to make sure that we incorporate circular economy concepts into the action plans and strategies that we are preparing for various sector issues. We started focusing on some of the low-hanging ones, some of those sectors which were, taking everybody's attention at a global level. And we were trying to build in knowledge-based capacity, skills to make sure that there is more recognition on what circular economy can do and how we can mitigate this risk. Now, why this is important? Because still people understand the need and the fundamental requirements. They will not be putting their money at risk, they will not be investing. So one of the first takeaways for us was, before you put in finance, you have to make sure that people understand what is going to be happening to their investments. The second thing that was important was putting money where it matters, and basically leading the way by allocating capital to certain programs, projects, and business ventures. And I mentioned business ventures because I come from IBRD, which works very closely with government, but IFC, which is also a part of the World Bank Group, we work with industries directly. And that is where the business ventures get the money and services of the World Bank institutions. And we have data availability, we have investment decision-making tools, showing them the opportunities of where we can. So this is another fundamental part, that unless we start putting money on the table, we will not see the game shifting. The third and the most important thing that was realized in this last few years was that without collaboration, whether it is with academics, whether it's with research, whether research organizations or scientists or economists, without collaboration, we can't go very far. And this also applies to the collaboration between government and the private sector. And here, engagement of policymakers and business ventures is something that is helping us learn the game on circular economy transitions much more quickly. Now, just one or two more quick slides before I pass the baton is on what specific parts is the World Bank moving and what are we doing. So we are not just a lender. We are, of course, putting money on the table, but we are also knowledge hub. So we have conducted research, we have reports and papers, we have advisory services, which is helping the governments on and off this table, because there are certain informal relationships also, which help our advisory support in taking the government the leap towards circular economy. We are also actively involved in certain specific areas. At this point in time, if I talk, reducing waste, protecting resources, and moving on water efficiencies are some of the areas, solid waste management. These are some of these areas where we have put in a lot of money on programs related to circular economy. The other thing is that we are also looking at experience, whether it is the EU experience or else, or some other sectors in other parts of the world, where what is it that we can take away? Because that learning is also getting flowed back into our work. Then importance of green finance institutions, whether it is at the SME level, green bonds in the form of putting the pension funds more aptly, etc. There's a whole lot of work that is happening on the green finance initiatives, which the bank has been part of. And you can find all of that information on the World Bank websites in case you are interested. So as I mentioned, there are some specific areas, but I would like to highlight that it is not just the money that is going into it. We are also working on cross-cutting issues like health and well-being, biodiversity, governance, because somehow or the other, they all fit into the larger scheme and links in the circular economy side. Not get into the details, this is just for your reference, but from loans and grants to technical assistance, partnerships. So some of the questions that the previous session was asking on how do I get to move this? How can I break a trade barrier? What do we need to make the regulatory environment more conducive? These are the kind of work that we do through technical assistance and partnership building with government and private sector, depending on which sector and which area we're talking about. For my closing remarks, I would just say that everybody has realized across the world that circular economy is an important blueprint to sustainable development. We can't talk about sustainable development without putting circular economy at the core of the problem. The second and the most important part is, if we want to bring finance, we will have to talk about economics in the way the larger world and the businesses understand. Social, environment, climate, these are things that are important, but to a financing sector, if you want to get money, they have to see what else this investment can bring. So putting investment and performance related to economy and development will have to also be put in terms of number to attract more capital. Two more things that I would like to say before I close is that data quality and system availability will be critical. Because once we say we are going circular or we are producing X, Y, Z benefits, either for the sector or for the global economy, what does the data say? How do we measure that? Can we make sure that our data matrices and disclosure frameworks actually bring in the circularity dimensions into the way we are looking at it? ESG was fast changing the landscape, but the circular bit will have to be introduced so that there are tangible numbers that people can fall back on before we can unlock even more economic opportunities for industries, asset classes, and the governments. So let me stop here, Gulshanji, and Professor Saab, back to you for the remaining part of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vyas. In fact, in such a short span of time, you introduced so many things to us. And, I think you're right. You have said that, we have come a long way with a very limited period of time, but still we are not there yet. But we also have to sensitize people, not just only about the requirement, but, there's also a multi-billion dollar opportunity. And also, I'm thankful, for outlining what the kind of, initiative the World Bank has taken. And, many other points, one other point is also very important, which you made, that if you identify some specific sectors, like you said, the cement, aluminium, steel plant, food, etc., rather than just talking about everything, if you just concentrate, then maybe, half of the problem would be just there in just few of the sectors. I think these are very important takeaways from your presentation. Thank you so much. And I'm sure it would have raised many questions and many queries. We'll come back to you later on. I hope you'll continue with us. Next, may I ask Mr. Raza Bath, who'll be talking about circularity in materials. Can we just remove this presentation from... Mr. Raza?
Yeah, hello everyone.
Yeah. How can we remove this presentation of Ms. Vyas? I can't do it because...
I hope you can hear my voice now.
Yes, we can. Oh yeah, thank you, sir. Please, yeah, we are hearing you. Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna share a sub file that I made because I have actually informed last few days. 3 days. So my apology if I couldn't have enough time to make proper presentations, but I hope these presentations can explain. As I was asked to give some insights on the security of critical minerals in the global south. So this is what I'm preparing. Okay, everyone. So so before I start, I would like to introduce to everyone the condition here, the condition. As you can see, Indonesia has 281 plus million population with productive age in percentage 68%. So so you can tell that most of Indonesians they are when I say productive means they use electronic devices as everyday as more like a primary need. So each person, if you come to Indonesia, you can find that each person at least have 2 handphones, 1 laptop, to go with the daily activities. But the problem in Indonesia is since I've been in the industry of e-waste, become an advisory in e-waste collection for more than 10 years now. I've seen that the recycling process in Indonesia and also the informal e-waste management and recycling companies has not grown since then. Currently, we only have less than 10 formal e-waste management and recycling companies. As you can see, with the volume of the e-waste as we can found in 2022, there's like 2.2 million tons recorded. I believe that this is not the entire volumes of e-waste or metal and used metals recorded in Indonesia. It should be more than this, but this is what we got. The information that I got this from the Ministry of Environment. So this is one of the problems that Indonesia is facing right now. And also, since we have only 10, less than 10 recycling companies, and most of these companies are only having technology that focus for extracting gold, silver, palladium, platinum, copper, tin, aluminum, and steel. But as you see, inside the e-waste or inside of electronics, you have so many other metals and minerals, right? Such as platinum group metals, and then rare earth metals that we still can. We don't have the technology right now to actually extract it. So this is one of the other problems that Indonesia is facing currently. As for the materials, you can see there's so many materials. There, I can note for 15, but it should be more than this. That each of these materials has precious metals and also rare minerals inside, but still so many of them that we cannot process yet. Regarding the process, can you hear me? Excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry,
yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can
My
hear you.
apology. My apology. Actually, I'm having very bad signals. But can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you please continue. Yes.
Okay, I hope you can hear me now, sir. All
Yeah,
right.
I can hear you. Definitely.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Well, sorry. Okay, to continue. Right now, as we know that the precious metals is very in high demand in Indonesia, also I believe everywhere around the world, and as the gold prices also climbs out every day, it's getting very very expensive currently. So that equals to proliferation of urban recyclers here in Indonesia as well. This is one of the problem that we are facing. As currently, I manage a group. I manage a group that consists of more than 100,000 of e-waste traders and also recyclers. Every day, I found that they are starting to process the material on their own. So, of course, this will pose environmental challenge. I try to advocate to them or to not do it instead of processing yourself, selling to the recyclers, but many of them refuse and they kept on doing it. So that's another problem that we're having here. And yeah, as we know, an improper metal extraction impose the environmental challenges such as by using the hazardous chemicals such as nitric acids, hydrochloric acids. This will very much risky for those who doesn't understand how to properly manage the chemical constructions as also the portions of chemicals. And secondly, if they manage even to do the processing, there will be still a heavy metal content liquid. So this needs another process to actually to decontaminate the liquid before they throw it away to the waterways. So well, I guess
through the high demand of nowadays precious metals, we have also more problems coming up in Indonesia. So in order to help or to participate in this sector, it's been 2 years now that I developed this marketplace, an app that I developed since 2022. It's called Retronic. That it can be used by Indonesian users, such as the companies and also the untapped market, the publics, so they can actually, instead of just throw it away, they can sell it to us. Within this app, I developed a feature where we put most of the materials that we're going to buy, such as like old-fashioned old electronics, or something that we believe that in nowadays technology it doesn't do the work any longer. So we're buying it directly from them. So the ideas that I'm proposing within my community right now, instead of doing your own recycling, let's focus on the reuse and the refurbishment. So by having this platform that I'm building, so I'm hoping that it could be one of the way for them to participate at least, and also to have extra income from selling the electronics they don't use anymore. So yeah. So this is the business workflow. It's very I can say traditional, where we buy from all over, the customer, the public, also the business. We do the sorting process. Anything that we see that we can refurbish, that we will refurbish it, and then we resell it again to the market. The materials or the goods that we cannot refurbish, then we will send it to our recycling partners. And currently as well, I'm not a chemist, but I've been studying it myself for a couple of years now. So currently I'm doing my own project as well of R&D to extract precious metals from e-waste as well. So lately I've been doing with the still with the chemical, but now I'm about to embark in doing it with the by using bacteria. So I hope very soon that I can come up with a new way of extracting precious metals with less contamination and more safe for the environment. That's all from me, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Raza. I mean, I think the way, in fact, I mean, I'm not really a scientist, but it's quite complicated thing what you have shown us, that everybody today talks about critical minerals. So we want to use all those critical minerals for everything, but later on, this is going to become a serious problem for all of us, because then how do we really, get rid of the things when people are not really using all these. Can you just please, switch off your this presentation, so then we can go to the next speaker. Next, we have Professor Shannon Olson. She is, she's a founder and global director of the Eco Network. And in fact, since here all of us are interested in circular economy and related issues, I would encourage all of us to just go to her website and see the kind of wonderful network she has created in a large number of countries. And particularly for last many years, she's really transatlantic person from the US to Europe, and also for last so many years working at grassroots level with many organizations and individuals in India. Professor Shannon, over to you. She'll talk about knowledge circularity, which is much more important than critical minerals and anything else, because this is what exactly we need. Professor Shannon.
Thank you so much. I've been really enjoying this. Yes, I'm going to talk about a little bit something different than financing and materials and all of the wonderful and very important aspects of the work that's for circular economy that we've been hearing now, and talk a little bit more about knowledge as also an important resource. And this is what we're talking about, right? When we mean circular economy, we all know this is what we're trying to go from the traditional linear economy that we still have to large extent throughout the world, to circularity, where things that used to be considered waste now are just another resource in the pathway. And this all sounds great, and we've seen beautiful examples of this happening already in today's presentations. But the reality is that our systems are really complex. So this is Gaines' visualization of our food system, right? And it's insane. I mean, it's so complicated when you think of the number of stakeholders, number of pathways, a number of stops in the chain to create something like a circular bioeconomy for food systems. It is incredibly complex. We might be able to do it for very specific products or very specific pathways, but if we're talking about truly circular economy on, let's say, national or global levels, it becomes almost impossible unless you start talking about collaboration, right? We obviously have to work together. No one stakeholder, no one person in the chain can accomplish this on their own. It takes everybody to start working together. And I don't know where in the world you are coming from during this talk, but you probably have at one point worked on a group project, either in school or maybe professionally, and you know what working together means, right? It doesn't mean everybody works together equally, right? You usually have a few people that do almost all the work. You have people who have no idea what's going on, you have people that say they're going to work with you and then they just don't do anything at all. And then people that somehow disappear for most of the time, and then they show up at the very end to take the credit and shake the hands, right? And this is very common in our global systems as well. We have these same players, the same stakeholders, and I'm sure you've all dealt with these kind of people. And this is what the problem we have with trying to get people to work together to these larger sort of circular economic models that really work cross-nationally and perhaps globally. And this is where we need something that the Eco Network calls knowledge circularity, okay? And this may be a concept that you haven't heard before. I think it's our concept as far as I know. But, we don't usually think about knowledge as a resource, and we certainly don't think of it as a non-renewable resource, but in fact it is, because all of you listening to me right now, including myself, we have our own particular knowledge set. It's built by our experiences, by our culture, by our knowledge, by our training, by our professional activities, and it is unique to us. And it will never happen again. There will be never another you on this planet with your particular knowledge. And that means that human knowledge is perhaps the most precious resource for circular economies that we possibly have on the planet, because it's something that once it's gone, we never get it back. So we have to create, in order to truly harness circular economic principles, knowledge circularity, which is sharing the knowledge between these stakeholders, between these persons, on how their systems work, what they need, and how they're actually operationalizing, and create feedback loops. Now, how do you do that, right? Well, that's actually something that our network focus on. This is precisely the goal of our network, is to create this sort of knowledge circularity across different peoples, across different countries, to address these circular issues for sustainable development. And we think of this as 3 basic steps, okay? And these 3 basic steps are very, very practical, because it's simply how you build trust with people, okay? That's what it boils down to. And the first thing is that in order to create knowledge circularity, you have to listen to each other. You have to be willing to stop talking, unlike what I'm doing right now, and sit back and listen to what these other stakeholders have to say. And then you have to find points of agreement. We all have different inflection points. There's a lot of things that are important. There's supply chain issues, there's infrastructural issues, there's enforcement issues, policy issues. All of these issues are happening simultaneously. All are important. But we have to find first where we have points of agreement to work on together, and then we have to reciprocate. We have to share knowledge between each other to maintain that trust and build that knowledge circularity into the picture. So you can do this through a several step process. It's something that we do in our network, but it's something that you can do, each of you can do in your own processes right now, because I truly believe this is one of the linchpins for us to be able to move forward closer to achieving those SDGs. We need to understand what are the needs out there. What actually is the problem with circular economy? We often think we know the problem, but we aren't really listening to others. What is their problem? What is their need? And then find points of commonality, find shared values. We all agree that we need to develop this technology. We all agree that this policy is needed, this financing system needed, whatever the case may be. And then look at what's currently being done out there. A lot of times, the solutions are already existing out there in the world somewhere. They just aren't necessarily operationalized in all of these contexts, or perhaps in the context in which you're considering it. Find out if there's any knowledge gaps. Is there anything that we don't know right now that needs to be learned? Work with researchers, work with scientists like me, and try to figure out what solutions are possible, and then start sharing that knowledge and iteratively building that knowledge together to improve that circularity. We won't have perfect circularity to begin with, or maybe even circularity at all. But by working towards this, you can build up this knowledge circularity into something that can actually work even at a global scale. This is not meant for you to get any sense of it. It's just to show you these are what our knowledge circularity looks like in our network. These are made up of hundreds of people and many different organizations. And you see how complicated they are. Because when you start building these relationships and building these connections between these different sectors, it becomes quite complicated. But as long as the participants in the chain understand where their point is in that chain, where their knowledge comes into them and where it goes out, you can start to really build these systems level solutions like for circular economy. So yes, I'll share my website of the amazing team that works with me. And I really hope to hear from you. And I hope you're inspired by this idea of knowledge circularity. It is the most precious resource we have, and it is the least renewable resource as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Shannon, for introducing your wonderful network to this network of circular economy. And I'm sure everybody will benefit. And now just following you, in fact, your presentation was so clear, I don't have to say anything. I just have to listen to other speakers. So the next speaker we have from Macedonia, North Macedonia, Dr. Biljana Matveska.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so already introduced myself. I will briefly present the case study of the piloted circular economy business model in the wine industry in Macedonia. But before I start, I have to share with you what about the region. Actually, the picture you see here is not from Italy, it's from Macedonia. So this is the Macedonian Tuscany, the Tikvech region that lies in the central south part of the country. And it's known for its beautiful and quality wine, high quality wine. And this is due to the perfect climate conditions here. So we have mixture of continental climate and Mediterranean climate, influenced with more than 270 sunny days per year. In 2023, the CRPM, the think tank that I work with, GIZ and one of the biggest wineries in this region, Bovin Winery, we were supported by the German government to implement a project for circular economy in the Tikvech region. And we were supposed to develop a sustainable bio-waste management system that would cover the whole region, but also that could be replicable in other regions in the country and broader in the Western Balkans. Our focus were the biggest three municipalities in this region, Kavadarcina, Gutino, and Dimir Kapija, where the main economic activity of the population is actually agriculture, or more specifically, viticulture and wine production. And the statistics shows that in North Macedonia, there are 23,047 hectares of wine. One of the third is exactly in these three municipalities. And depending on the weather conditions, we produced around 100 million of liters of wine per year. Having that in mind, we can just assume that there are massive quantities of biowaste that is been generating, both from the wine pruning and from wine production. We did analysis on field and found out that around 1.5 tons per hectare of biomass is being produced during the wine pruning, and 1/3 of the total mass from the whole country is in the Tikvesh region. As for the wine production, we calculated that around 25% from the grapes is pomace, grape stem, skin, and seed, and we use these numbers to feed in the business models that we developed. And yes, let's remind ourselves, why are we doing this? At least in Macedonia, in the Western Balkan countries, it's really common to burn this type of biomass, bio-waste out at open. We calculated that around 40% of the total amounts that I mentioned are being burned at open, posing land degradation, air pollution, water pollution, and of course, emissions of greenhouse gases. Very little, or I can freely say none, of that bio-waste is being valorized. So our idea was to identify the solutions to utilize and valorize this type of bio-waste, and to develop a system that will be replicable in other regions as well. So we developed these several business models for pellets, briquettes, natural fertilizer, oil, and flour, and we did scenarios for public-private partnership, which we think is very important for this kind of waste. What we agree on was to pilot the briquettes, and it was very simple to implement in the region. First, I mentioned that we did this analysis on field. We identified the quantities, and next what we did laboratory analysis on the different wine sorts, but we also did prototypes. We prototyped the briquettes, pellets, and the natural fertilizer in one of the biohack laboratories that we have in the capital. Next, what we did is we collected the branches, because it's very important how that the branches will be collected using the boiling machine, as you can see on the picture. We collected the branches from the bovine winery, our partner, and stored them to dry in a natural way. Then we transported them to a local business startup that possessed a production plant for briquettes, and transformed the briquettes into the branches into briquettes, which are shown on the pictures. After that, we took examples from the briquettes, and introduced the mayors of the three municipalities that were our focus, and presented the economic viability, the social impact, the environmental impact, and one of the mayors agreed to procure this product and to do additional testing regarding the emissions from burning the briquettes, comparing to the emissions from burning firewoods. The results were impressive, even for the professors from the University of Goza Delchev, who possessed the equipment for measuring the emissions. And we found out that there was 30% lower PM10 particles emissions from burning these briquettes compared with the dry firewoods. And schools who are using firewoods were the first official consumers of our product. Next, what we did several workshops for the farmers, for the public utility companies, and for the municipal representatives, where we shared the developed business models, but also the piloted one. The benefits are more than clear. Yeah, we are boosting circular economy with this, even though it is not a very innovative product, but still we're not burning it out at open. We are reducing consumption of fossil fuels if we switch to this kind of fuel. We are reducing the outdoor burning practices, which a lot of times are cause uncontrolled fires. There are 30% lower emissions of TM particles when burning biomass compared to burning firewood. And we also did some simple calculation that around 2,000 tons per year CO2 offset by decreased logging. We are supporting, of course, local economy in this region through procurement of local energy from this waste. What are the lessons that we learned through the years is that, yes, there is high interest. There is high interest from the public utility companies, from the municipal representatives, from the business sectors, and from the farmers as well. But still, there is low involvement of all of them in this circular economy business models. There is a huge potential. So this is also a very simple calculation that we did for the value of the branches that could be transformed into briquettes. It's around 6 million euros per year only for this region, but still we see very limited valorization of this kind of waste. There are a lot of other business opportunities that we haven't even investigated in our project, but we don't see enough support from the government and maybe the international organizations that would boost the circularity in the wine industry. Our recommendations are, law enforcement first and foremost, as environmental degradation is illegal everywhere, including in Macedonia as well, and it is regulated by the criminal law, but we don't see enforcement. We need to improve our legislation following the EU example and introduce incentives, which we don't have now, to have more meaningful contribution by all stakeholders in these processes. Also, there should be more available programs for supporting young people, especially young farmers, to start rural businesses. As we see the migration from rural to urban areas, it's massive in Macedonia, and it's a national challenge. And last but not least, we need more raising awareness campaigns that will teach people how to use and how to share platforms for waste supply chain and to untap all the opportunities for waste valorization. By piloting this model, we show that it is possible if there is a goodwill, if everybody is engaged, and we can improve, we can be better. We just need will from all involved in the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Biljana. Well, we have already finished our time, but I mean, we are still in the global south. We can extend it a little bit more. We have two very important speakers still here, and then if there's time, we can have some discussions. So at least we can extend it at least for minimum 15 minutes. I can, concluding remarks, I can just do it in half a minute later. So maybe if I now invite our speakers from Latin America, from Costa Rica, about Dr. Glenn, how state of the affair is in Latin America, because we are talking about huge, because the people in the north, particularly in your neighboring states, the gentlemen in the US, they don't care much about this. So we have to take care of many of those things which are happening, because in the global south, particularly also on the circular economy. Yeah, Dr. Glenn.
Indeed. That's quite important. Let me first try to share my screen here. Hopefully you are seeing the whole presentation right now, eh? Yeah, good. So I just want to double check if I pass the slides, if you can see the slide moving. Is it moving?
It's moving, yes.
Awesome. All right. So, well, let's start. First of all, thank you again for the invitation. It is a great pleasure to me to be here in this inspiring session. After listening to the panelists and also these expert presentations, with such a great contributions, actually I feel that I don't have too much to bring right now. A lot of things already have been said. So maybe what we could do is to use this presentation and looking at the state of the art of circular economy in Latin America and the Caribbean to reflect on how similar are global south regions actually. And well, that's the reason why we're all gathered here. Also resonated with what Shannon was saying about the collaboration part and the knowledge aspect of circularity. So anyway, I'm going to start now. Before moving to the main content, I just want to tell you a bit about my journey in sustainability. I specialize in quantitative sustainability assessments. And for the past 10 years, I've been dedicated to study circular economy, in particular, how to measure the potential socioeconomic and environmental impacts of a circular economy at macro scale. Currently, I'm a research fellow at Leiden University from the Netherlands and Academia de Centroamérica, which is the think tank that I mentioned at the beginning. And in here, I'm leading a project called UNICA, which is a EU-funded project that aims to understand the implications of circularity in Latin American countries. So today, what I'm going to share is a bit about our experiences in this ongoing project. If you're interested in the topic, feel free to scan the QR code that I have here in order to follow our updates via LinkedIn. Moving on to the main topic, let's first set the context. So why Latin America is so important globally? Well, we're talking about a region that consists of 33 countries, and it's home of 8% of the world's population, contributing to roughly 7% of the global GDP. More importantly, this region is crucial for global sustainability, as it is a biomass powerhouse, for example, supplying over a quarter of the global food exports. And it contains more than 40% of the global biodiversity, making it essential for sustaining global ecosystems. So any transition that occurs within Latin America would have an impact in the rest of the world. And that's why talking about circularity in Latin America is so important. Now, the main question, what do we know about circular economy in this region? Firstly, and as it was mentioned by the panelists, even if it's not called as a circular economy, it is not a new concept. Actually, we can see circular practices already in everyday life of Latin American communities. Take, for example, repairing of clothing or secondhand markets for appliances and vehicles. So this mindset of reuse and repair, it's already embedded within Latin American culture. And well, as in many other global south countries, this resourcefulness might come from economic necessity, but still we're talking about circular practices that are already part of a culture, which is quite important, I would say. Second, we have some progress regarding policy regulations. Since 2019, with the Colombian National Strategy, there has been 11 countries that have proposed their own roadmaps and national plans, the latest one being Uruguay and Panama. Additionally, it's important to acknowledge those laws that were previously done that are already part of the circular economy principles. So for example, in Brazil and in Colombia, we have already in place laws related to solid waste management that has been developed a decade ago. And finally, I want to stress a point about data, and that right now we have a better picture about the material flows within the region. So we have, in 2023, we have the Circularity Gap Report, in which it was estimated that Latin America is less than 1% circular, meaning that there is only a tiny fraction of the materials that are used in the economy that comes from these recovered or recycled materials. More importantly, in the report, it's highlighted the circularity potential, and especially showing how important is the biomass production for achieving circularity within the region. So we have heard a lot about opportunities and challenges within the Global South. This is exactly the same with Latin American countries, of course. And thinking about the enabling mechanisms that we have in the main title, we have a study actually enabling mechanisms within Latin American countries, and we identified 3 key ones in the upcoming years, which are related to policy regulation, assessment and monitoring, and financial investments. I will leave you a link to one of the publications that we have if you are interested in looking into these enabling mechanisms. And of course, I will be happy to share my thoughts about it during the discussion. For now, I hope that I can give you a bit of insights with this quick overview. And well, thanks again for all your time. And well, I look forward to keeping connected to explore circularity in the Global South. Gulshan, we cannot hear you. I think that you are talking. Otherwise, well, I think it is clear that I'm done with my presentation.
Sorry, because there was some storm outside. I just kind of muted myself. So yeah, I'm saying thank you so much for introducing your region and the issues of your region. So now we have Dr. Mariam Blend from Mauritius. She's the last speaker, but obviously she's one of the most important speakers for our workshop here. Yeah, Dr. Blend, please.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see, and we can also hear you very clearly.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you for the introduction, Professor Sekjiva. It was fascinating to listen to everyone. What I'm proposing to present this afternoon is a case study of Mauritius. We are a very small country, but we have a circular economy roadmap. And very recently, we introduced a solid waste management and circularity strategy. And it's a beautiful strategy. But as a think tank, when we saw that particular strategy, it was almost too beautiful to be true. And so we decided to do what we always do, which is stakeholder engagement, and evaluate the extent to which this strategy was realistic and what it is that we needed to think about to ensure that we could implement this strategy in a way that would optimize its implementation. And so what I'm going to present right now in 5 minutes is some of the outcomes that came out of this engagement. I don't want to spend too much time on the Mauritius context. What you just need to know is that one big landfill was built in 1997, and ever since, all the waste has been going into that particular landfill. 96% of our waste goes to the landfill in Mauritius. So our level of circularity is very small, mostly in bio-circularity, bio-waste through our sugarcane in particular, but it still is extremely limited. We have that strategy. The strategy is one that uses the 5 R's, but particularly has the ambition to set up an ecosystem where there would be sorting at the source and where the whole journey of waste is managed and controlled through the strategy, with 2 streams, one for households and one for the private sector, for industry. The household would be financed through fiscality, through tax, and would be managed by the government with 2 central sorting entities to sort the waste into recyclables and non-recyclables, and with then all the recyclables except anything that goes to compost would then be exported to recycling facilities abroad. And we'll talk more about that issue in a minute. And then in terms of the private sector are responsible for their waste up to the end of the journey. And the plan is to implement for most of these products an ERP to finance the ecosystem of the sorting and recycling of waste. The private sector will have the option of sending their waste to the government sorting facilities, or to use different local or regional providers, the existing ecosystem or upcoming ecosystems of local recycling or regional recycling. We already have some infrastructure in terms of paper and, of course, green waste, but not, for example, of plastic, metal, or glass. So that's the plan. It's beautiful. And so we met last week, actually, with government officials who are in charge of implementing this strategy, with the private sector, with civil society, and we asked, how can we make sure that this strategy be implemented optimally? And the first thing is that we identify some key obstacle to the good implementation of this strategy. The first is that to date, and the framework as it is written at the moment, does not provide a proper governance for a good coordination between the different stakeholders. And so there's a big challenge here in identifying the players and providing a proper framework for each of these players and each of these stakeholders. So it's not even a proper definition of what do we mean by collectors? What do we mean by recyclers? They kind of all put into the same basket. So there's a huge work here in refining the governance, coordination, and legal framework to back up this strategy. Also, the strategy does not provide a proper framework to integrate the existing players on the circular economy in Mauritius. We have tons of small players, but no space is given to them in that framework. And you can see, because everything is planned to be exported. And so there is a big gap here in terms of circularity. There is also some challenge in terms of infrastructure. There are very limited local or regional recycling infrastructure for Mauritius, and of course that's true for all the small economies. But again, in terms of circularity, we would like to avoid to export most of our waste, and so what can we find in terms of that we will have to export some, but what could we leave? What could we keep regionally or locally? Technology is not at all part of that strategy. And so there's a good question here, how we can better leverage on technology. And also we have a huge gap in terms of data, massive gaps in terms of our data are very generic. And of course we need data to do this properly. Engagement was also a huge identify as a big obstacle. There's very limited public awareness in terms of the importance of recycling. Recycling is not in the culture in Mauritius. We're still working on making sure people throw their waste in paper bins and basket bins. So there's a huge challenge here in terms of moving and shaping cultures and mentalities and mindsets towards circularity and recycling. We also find resistance in the private sector because of the costs associated. And a lack of trust. So there's a lot, Mauritius is small, so as soon as there's a bad reputation, that kind of spreads. And this is idea that actually what we export is not recycled. It goes into, dumps in China or dumps elsewhere. And so we need to reestablish trust in where this waste is going. And of course, obstacle in terms of finance, how we can make local recycling or regional entities competitive so that it is financially viable for them to exist. But also the incentive mechanisms that are in place are for the moment inadequate. For example, there are no costs associated to putting your waste into the landfill. So if we had a fee at the entrance of the landfill, that would discourage private sector to send all their waste or consumers to the landfill. So we discussed, of course, some solutions. The first thing is to review the framework, the regulatory framework, with a proper identification, articulation, and insertion of all stakeholders into the framework, but also with framework for each of these stakeholders. For example, most of our recycling or recycling entities are social enterprises. We don't have a framework in Mauritius for social enterprises. Of course, reflect on what would be the kind of fiscal and financial incentive that would support that circular economy beyond the ERP. ERP is great, but we need more than that. And, we talked a lot about collaboration, but this can only work if we have a proper framework of collaboration between the public, the private, and civil society that is extremely important, powerful in Mauritius in terms of circularity. So we need that coordination. In terms of infrastructure, it was, Mauritius is very small. We can't do it on our own, but we're part of a region. And we're part of a region, we're part of agreements, the SADC, the IOC. So we have tons of regional framework, of regional cooperation agreement that can support us together in building a regional ecosystem of recycling infrastructure, and through different policy tools, through incentive using infant industry policy, we do have the potential of developing more regional local recycling facility. We'll still have to export, but let's try to see what we can do regionally and work together. We need to have a better platform to link stakeholders and, of course, data and transparency around data. So yeah, I mean, regional cooperation, and I already talked about the infant industry in terms of policy and finance. And finally, a very simple measure, we could do it immediately, charge people before they throw their waste into marchicos or landfill, because just with that fee, we would already divert quite a lot. Nothing more than a financial incentive to get the private sector to change their behavior. So these are the outcome of that workshop. We are going to continue that conversation. And if there's any regional players here, please contact Mauritius. We want to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Blaine. In fact, you said that the Mauritius is a small country, but your plan is pretty big. In fact, you have big ambitions as far as recycling and circular economies are concerned. We have already taken all of our time. And in fact, what we plan to do now is that, many of the questions which were asked, some of you have already answered. I saw, there were direct questions for Ms. Neha Vyas, and she has answered directly there only. So thank you. I mean, it's good, very good, because at least, they were able to get. But of course, we'll also be sharing contacts with all of our speakers. So all the participants, many of them are still continuing. They can, talk to them directly. Just before, I'll just take 2 more minutes. I'll not speak, but I'll let you speak for those 2 minutes. Since we work on, in any way, we are, the way, I mean, the kind of interest and the work you are doing, what are the Global South Center of Excellence we plan to do now is, we might have a specific webinars with all of you specifically on special issues, whether with Mauritius or with Costa Rica or with Macedonia or with Eco Network or with Indonesia or with others, because then we'll really try to understand how things are happening, and we'll also get specific experts for that. Now, just before we kind of, conclude this very, useful workshop today, can all of you can just tell us, now there are a large number of issues we discussed, and it's a big issue, and many things have already happened, but still a lot of things need to be done. The kind of current geopolitical situation in the world we have, where policymakers for the next few months or maybe few years would be busy with so many other tariff and all other kind of issues, and many of them have kind of even abandoned their original goals towards the green economy or whatever we can call it. So can you just tell us in a few seconds, all of you, just what exactly the issue we should be focusing in the Global South, in this center, and then we'll start with the Neha Vyas, please. Can you just let us, I mean, out of all the discussion we had, yeah, please, Ms. Vyas.
So one thing that clearly emerged is the diversity of case studies and work that we have, just listened. This is extremely enriching. And I think each of these topics merits a much deeper dive. And perhaps one of the ways to take this story forward, the narrative forward, would be to assimilate a few more case studies of similar sector, bring together players, do the exchange so that common pain points and common achievements could be distilled out of that and can be taken forward. The second bit that would be important to see is what are those players and partnership pain points that are still remaining so that the issues can be escalated and taken up at a higher level. Say, for example, there are areas which cannot be solved individually by an academic institution or an NGO or one player, but they need to be really taken up at a policy making level or at a financing institution level. So depending on these lessons, we could perhaps distill more and more out of these learnings that we are seeing, but encouraging to see a wide variety and all kinds and shapes of circular economy initiatives. Let me stop here. I'm on the highway, so I'm cognizant of the background noises. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. In fact, I mean, with all your, still you have been able to continuing and, even answering and everything else. Thank you so much for you participating here and all the best. Now, Mr. Raza, are you here? Or no, I don't see him. Yeah, Professor Shannon, particularly for the Global South.
Yeah, particularly for the Global South. I think that it was raised a bit earlier, but most of the circular economy issues that are coming out of the Global North are very reducing consumption, right? That's a huge focus because consumption is a huge aspect. Where in the Global South, we have very, very different focuses, right? Consumption isn't always the issue, right? Actually, the availability of supplies can be the biggest issue. And so that is why I think we need to kind of step away from purely looking at solutions that have been deployed in the Global North as if they will be directly applicable to any of our countries that we've mentioned here today, and really look at what are the actual needs that we have on the ground in each of our countries. What are the pinch points? Because I do see very stark differences between the way circular economy models are functioning in places like Europe, let's say, versus how they might work in India, where you and I work. So,
thank you. Dr. Bilyana?
Yes, thank you. When we were implementing this project in the past 2 years, I've met a lot of experts actually in Macedonia that I didn't know them. I was not aware that there were other people working on circular economy topics. And in discussion with them, we found out that what we actually need, not only for Macedonia, let's be honest, it's 2 million country, 2 million population country with 2 million people, and we have to be connected. We have to be connected with other countries with similar activities as in Macedonia, with other countries that agriculture is the economic driver of the country, and we have to learn how to share platforms, and we have to be in the same supply chain. And only if we join forces with other countries, we can actually do something with that waste, because if we don't have quantities, really it's impossible to deal with the waste. And we as a small country, we don't generate much amount of quantities, regardless of the type of waste.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Glenn.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a very interesting question. And well, of course, we have very interesting insights already from everyone. So thanks for all your insights. Maybe, yeah, I would like to highlight two points here. And for the first one, I want to come back to what Shalini was mentioning at the beginning, right? Basically, when we're looking at circularity in the Global South, it's very interesting to think about the inclusiveness, talking about inclusiveness and the empowerment of people. And for me, this is really important because sometimes we are neglecting the vulnerable groups. For example, the informal economy. In Latin America, that represents around 60% of the workforce of the region, and usually they are coming from vulnerable sectors. So how to deal that in the policy, since starting from the top-down approach, how to deal that with informality, I think that is quite important. This also applies for the small and medium-sized enterprises, which in Latin America represent around 90% of the formal economy. So I would assume that the numbers are quite similar for the rest of the Global South, but maybe you can corroborate that for me. But in general, the key message here is about policy regulations that enables these vulnerable groups to be part of the circularity. So in that side, we are actually moving forward into a more inclusive and empowering circularity. I love what Shalini mentioned there. The second point, it's something that Miriam and other presenters mentioned, and it's about data. Data, the assessment and the monitoring. And well, as I said, I'm a scientist, I'm a chemist by training, and I come from the quantitative side. So for me, measuring things is quite important. But what we don't measure, we cannot manage. Basically, that's how I see it. And with circular economy, I noticed in the Global South, I noticed that a lot of the discussion comes about data, about the material flows, flows of weights and so on. But we also should think about how to measure the stocks. The stocks are those durable products, basically how we are building our society, the buildings, cars, infrastructure, and so on. So as long as we don't have measurements about how these stocks are the dynamic of these stocks, I think it will be really difficult to manage a proper circular economy. So those key aspects, policies for vulnerable sectors and assessment and monitoring.
Yeah, lastly, Dr. Blin, anything
Thank
specific?
you. Well,
the Global South?
yeah, a lot of things has been said. I'll just say two things, and I mentioned it earlier. I think is to create regional because locally we can. So to create regional ecosystems where we build competitive industry and recycling in the Global South, and I think that's the first thing. But the other thing is to always remember to be community driven and to go bottom up as well and not just top down. We need to bring the communities into this conversation, because if they're part of the conversation, they're more likely to be part of the story as well and to be active in the story. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I don't want to really take any more time now because we have already taken enough. So only 2 words, in fact, I would say, which perhaps would be very useful for the Global South from all the discussion we have for the last 2 words. One is you need to be connected, continue to be connected. That connectivity is really very, very useful. And second thing is about knowledge sharing, whatever the knowledge actually exists anywhere in the north or south, anywhere else. We just have to keep sharing. And the third, then the finances perhaps much more complicated and the issue, but that's also available. The way, in fact, I think Ms. Neha Vyas was mentioning, I mean, we are not there yet, but the way perhaps we need to present itself is a huge economic opportunity. It's not just only a burden, because normally if policymakers think this is a burden, then they would try to avoid it. But if they look at it, it's really a huge opportunity. And also it can create a lot of new employment opportunities and many more things. So it means a lot of knowledge needs to be created about circular economy, need to be shared with each other. And then also, we have to look for certain technologies and financing with each other. Thank you so much participating in this particular very useful. And I must thank, our ICCE people here, because they have been really a backbone of this particular workshop, particularly, Ms. Shalini Bhalla and also Surbhi and Princey and everyone else at the ICCE. And also, my colleagues here at Dakshin and Akash and Tanya, who has been working many, many days, particularly for this workshop. But I think we have been able to put together very useful today, this workshop, which can lead to many more specific activities and deliverables. And thank you all of you for participating for very, very different time zones. I know it's not very easy, but still, we just always bank support of your support. Thank you very much, both from the Dakshin and from ICCE. I mean, I give the last word to Surbhi. She is here if you want to add anything before we close.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. I think it's almost done, and you have included everybody in thanking. And I would also like to thank RIS and Dakshin, the Global South Center of Excellence, for helping us conducting this webinar. And definitely the whole Dakshin team, the RIS team have been working in tandem with us, and we have put together good work, and great insights were shared today by all the speakers. We thank you all for your time today and efforts that you have put in to bring all the facts and figures and insights to the whole of the audience. And we look forward to more meaningful and impactful collaborations in the future. And anybody who wants to get in touch with us, you can write to us on info@icce.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can, go and follow our LinkedIn page also to follow our work. And thanks a lot. Have a great evening, everyone, and a wonderful weekend ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.